You can catch the show live Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. GMT on Africa Global Radio. Follow us across all social media platforms. On Facebook, it is Africa Global Radio. On Twitter, AF Global Radio. When tweeting, use the hashtag The Africa Daily Show or share your views or thoughts, comments with us on our WhatsApp platform, +233 20706468. Okay, coming up next is headlines across Africa. Don't go away.
Headlines across Africa.
Headlines across Africa.
Headlines across Africa.
Headlines across Africa.
Well, today we're going to Equatorial Guinea, Lesotho, and Eswatini.
Okay.
Well, starting from Equatorial Guinea, we'll be reading from the Guinea Equatorial Press.
Okay, let's hear it.
Now, the headline says the head of state speaks at the ordinary session of the AU summit. Arts, culture, and heritage, vehicles to build the Africa we want, is the motto that was chosen for this year, 2021. The outgoing president of the African Union, South African representative S.E. Cyril Ramaphosa, is leading this two-day conference to assess the economic and health impact of the pandemic, as well as the organization's efforts to alleviate the effects of the coronavirus. Now, reform of the African Union will also be discussed at the summit. To this respect, the president of Rwanda, S.E. Paul Kagame, was presented and has presented the process of institutional reform that includes the study of draft amendments to the current internal regulations of the Assembly, the Executive Board, as well as the statutes of the committee. The South African ruler, who was replaced during the summit as president of the African Union by the head of state of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, presented during the conference an update of the response against the pandemic with the aim of finding a solution. Now, the head of state and government, S.E. Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, for the first time has been speaking in the course of the Spanish debate, recognized since 2020 as the fifth working language of the African Union. The Equatorial Guinean representative congratulated his counterpart in the Democratic Republic of Congo on his election as president on duty for this year 2021, expressing support for the success of his term. The same congratulations have been addressed to the South African representative for his work during his shift as president of the organization. So, to eradicate the COVID-19 pandemic, the president of Equatorial Guinea has proposed to speakers share experiences, exchange information, and strengthen cooperation in the health sector. At another time during his speech, the head of state and government insisted on the implementation of Solidarity Decision Number 794, which enables Spanish as a working language within the African Union, which would allow our nation's delegation to participate and contribute comfortably to the organization's discussions. That is the story coming from the Guinea Equatorial Press.
Okay, right.
Moving on to Lesotho, we'll be reading from the Lesotho Times. And yeah, not really the best of headlines, but we have COVID-19 worsens women land rights violations in Lesotho. Lockdown restrictions aimed at fighting the COVID-19 pandemic in Lesotho have had an unintended adverse negative impact of undermining women's customary land rights, a regional human rights body has found. The organization Advancing Rights in Southern Africa, ARISA, said its research on the impact of COVID-19 on women's customary land rights and livelihoods in Southern Africa found that lockdown restrictions had worsened violations of women's customary land rights in the region. Now, in Lesotho, this has been done through the scaling down of court operations, and that has denied women access to whenever they were dispossessed of their land and unjustly evicted by their male counterparts. In addition, ARISA found that limitations placed on the movement of citizens meant that many could not travel to the court or other administrative and quasi-judicial institutions to have their legal issues addressed. Now, the human rights body therefore has called on Lesotho and other regional governments to revisit the lockdown measures to ensure that the women's land rights are not undermined by the COVID-19 pandemic and other disasters. During Lesotho's hard lockdown from 30th of March to 5th May 2020, the country's borders with South Africa were shut down and cross-border travel was banned. Now, inter-district movements were also banned except for exceptional cases like those of people traveling for medical services, and most economic activities were also banned during the lockdown. Yeah, it's quite a lengthy story, but I think the main thing is it's like choosing. It's difficult to choose like pick the lesser evil. Two evils, you have to pick the lesser evil, because as much as it's important to ensure that this women's land rights are not violated.
Okay.
Also, the measures have been put in place to ensure that COVID-19 does not necessarily spread. Now, let's not forget, I do understand and get where Arisa is coming from. And I believe that the government should be able to put measures in place. But when it comes to lifting or changing the lockdown, the whole COVID-19 restrictions, I don't think it should be something that should be lifted, because the lives that will be lost is what we're looking at.
Right.
Already economically is going to put a drain on them. The government has to also provide the vaccine as well. It's not something we have a one sure solution for. You understand? So I believe that this is the case where you need this district heads to come together and find solutions to be able to address these issues in their key districts, so that it doesn't necessarily have to end up in the main court. Right now, they can't move. So in their district, they should find the necessary or the appropriate leaders and get them to address these issues. But with the lifting of the COVID-19 restrictions, I don't go for it. Yeah, I don't go for it.
All right.
Well, finally, we're going to Eswatini, where we'll be reading from the Swazi Observer. And the headline's also not really interesting, but, well, it says Education in Results Dilemma. Yeah.
Okay.
The Ministry of Education and Training is faced with a dilemma. The ministry is yet to come up with a solution on how they would deal with the influx of parents and pupils in school once the junior certificate, which is Form 3 and Eswatini Primary Certificate, STDV, results have been released. The results are expected in the next few weeks, and parents and pupils usually visit schools in their numbers to find space for the next grade, and others would need to register. In past years, some parents and their children arrive in the schools in the early hours of the day as they try to be the first in line.
Right.
This is usually parents who have not been so lucky to get space for their children in the previous year. This year, they are concerned that this will cause them to break COVID-19 restrictions and lead some to contracting the virus. Principal Secretary at the Ministry, Bertram Stewart, has said that this will be a challenge as they had to find a way to ensure that this was done as safely as possible. Gaines, the PS, said that this could lead the country to lose the gains it had made over against the COVID-19 pandemic by closing schools. He also said the ministry will hold discussions on how this dilemma could be dealt with, and for him, this is a challenge. Stewart suggested that schools should use the internet and people should apply for spaces online. However, he says some schools do not have the resources and facilities for such. Hence, it was a challenge, and they would have to find a way to deal with it as a ministry. I think he's brought the answer himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think online is like the best. Online basically right now is a solution to curb the spread of the COVID-19.
Oh, yeah?
But with the schools that do not have the facilities,
Well,
I
that's
think
where
this
the
is pointing
problem-
back
yeah.
at the government, the ministry, because if you know there are such schools, especially if they happen to
They
be
need to do more
public
in
schools,
that space.
you need to make sure you provide them with
Right.
it. Because there's no way you would want to endanger the lives of the parents
Oh, yeah?
or the
All the
pupils.
people.
Exactly. So then
Absolutely.
they should do what they have to do.
Okay.
Well, that's all we have for headlines across Africa.
Nice.